The massive holographic display flickered to life in the center of the Galactic Council chambers, casting an eerie blue glow across the assembled alien delegates. Commander Zethkar of the Vorthak Empire leaned back in his crystalline throne, his forearms crossed in obvious disdain as he gestured toward the projection showing a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. "Behold, esteemed council members," Zethkar's voice resonated through the chamber's translation systems, each word dripping with contempt. "The so-called Earth and its primitive inhabitants. These, humans, dare to request membership in our glorious Galactic Federation." A ripple of what could only be described as laughter echoed through the chamber from various species. The serpentine Slithrak delegates hissed their amusement, while the insectoid Kreks clicked their mandibles in rhythmic mockery. Even the typically stoic granite lords of Petros rumbled with what passed for humor among their rocky forms. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood alone at the petitioner's podium, her crisp blue uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and biomechanical enhancements worn by the alien representatives. Despite being surrounded by beings who could crush her with a thought, she maintained her composure, her dark eyes scanning the chamber with quiet determination. "Honorable delegates," Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "Humanity comes before you, not as conquerors, but as potential partners. We offer our knowledge, our creativity, and our dedication to peaceful cooperation." The chamber erupted in what the translation systems could only render as various forms of derisive laughter. Zethkar raised one of his massive hands, and the noise gradually subsided. "Partners," the Vorthak commander's voice boomed. "Tell me, little human, what could your species possibly offer to civilizations that have mastered faster than light travel for millennia? We have weapons that can crack planets, shields that can deflect the energy of stars, and biotechnology that can reshape entire ecosystems. Your people have barely managed to leave their own solar system." Sarah's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. "We offer something that perhaps your advanced technologies cannot provide, Commander. We offer perspective, adaptability, and the willingness to find solutions where others see only problems." This statement was met with even louder derision. A delegate from the aquatic Hydros civilization gurgled something that the translators rendered as primitive mud dwellers thinking they can teach their betters. The Kreks representative, General Chitinus, stepped forward on his 6 legs, his compound eyes gleaming with malicious amusement. "Perhaps we should demonstrate to these humans exactly how outclassed they are. I propose a simple test." Zethkar's interest was clearly piqued. "What do you have in mind, General?" "My forces are currently engaged in pacifying the jungle world of Verdania 7. The native resistance there has proven troublesome. For standard military operations, the terrain is dense, the conditions are hostile, and conventional warfare has proven ineffective." Chitinus paused for dramatic effect. "If these humans truly believe they have something to offer, let them send their finest warriors to assist in this operation. When they fail, as they inevitably will, perhaps they will understand their place in the cosmic order." The chamber fell silent as the implications of this challenge sank in. Sarah felt her heart racing, but she forced herself to remain calm. This was either an opportunity or a death sentence. Possibly both. "The Kreks military has been unable to subdue primitive jungle dwellers?" Sarah asked, her tone carefully neutral. "How fascinating." Chitinus's mandibles clicked in irritation. "The natives have adapted to their environment in ways that make traditional warfare difficult. They use the jungle itself as a weapon, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. But they are still primitive beings with primitive weapons. And you believe human forces would fare better in such conditions? I believe human forces would be eliminated within days, thus proving conclusively that your species has nothing of value to contribute to galactic civilization." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, weighing her options. She knew that refusing would end any chance of humanity joining the galactic community. Accepting might end the same way, but with the added consequence of getting good people killed. However, there was something in the alien's description that gave her hope. Jungle warfare. Guerrilla tactics. If there was one thing humans had extensive experience with, it was fighting in hostile environments against superior forces. What would be the terms of this? Demonstration? She asked finally. Zethkar leaned forward, clearly enjoying the proceedings. Simple. The Krex will provide transportation and basic intelligence about Verdania 7. Humanity will send whatever forces they deem appropriate to assist in pacifying the resistant population. If the humans succeed where the Krex have struggled, we will consider their application for Federation membership. If they fail. When they fail, Chitinous interjected, humanity will withdraw their application and accept their status as a protected primitive species, subject to Federation oversight and restriction. The weight of the decision pressed down on Sarah's shoulders. She was essentially gambling with the future of her entire species based on the performance of soldiers who didn't even know they were being volunteered for this mission. But she also knew something the aliens didn't. Humans had been fighting in jungles for thousands of years, and some of the finest soldiers in human history had learned to make the jungle their ally. I accept your terms, Sarah said, her voice ringing with quiet confidence that surprised even herself. The chamber buzzed with excited chatter. Many of the delegates were already placing bets on how quickly the humans would be eliminated. Zethkar's forearms spread wide in a gesture of mock magnanimity. Excellent. General Chitinous, please provide our human friend with all the necessary information. I do hope your warriors have made their peace with whatever gods they worship, Ambassador Chen. Verdania 7 is where military careers go to die. As the council session concluded and delegates began filing out, still chattering excitedly about the upcoming spectacle, Sarah remained at the podium, accessing her quantum communicator to send an encrypted message back to Earth. She needed the best jungle fighters humanity could produce, and she needed them fast. What the aliens didn't know was that Earth had something no other world in the galaxy possessed. Soldiers who had learned to thrive in the most hostile environments imaginable, who had turned disadvantage into advantage, and who had never learned the meaning of the word impossible. Meanwhile, deep in the jungles of Verdania 7, a very different kind of preparation was taking place. Captain Marcus Rodriguez crouched motionless in the undergrowth, his jungle camouflage making him nearly invisible among the massive ferns and twisted vines. Around him, his team of 12 elite soldiers waited with the patience of predators, their enhanced optics scanning the alien patrol moving along the forest path below. The Krex soldiers were impressive by any measure, each standing nearly 3 meters tall, their exoskeletons gleaming with advanced armor plating, their weapons humming with energy discharges that could level trees. They moved in perfect formation, their compound eyes scanning constantly for threats, their communications equipment maintaining constant contact with their command structure. They were also walking directly into a trap that had been 3 days in the making. Rodriguez touched his throat mic with 2 fingers, sending a silent signal to his team. Immediately, the jungle around the alien patrol came alive with precisely coordinated chaos. Sergeant Lisa "Ghost" Nakamura had spent the last 2 days carefully weakening specific tree supports along the trail. At Rodriguez's signal, she triggered the charges she'd placed, sending 3 massive trees crashing down in a pattern that separated the Krex patrol into isolated groups, while providing perfect cover for the human soldiers. Corporal James Thorne Washington emerged from what the Krex had thought was solid ground, rising from a camouflaged spider hole directly beneath one of the alien soldiers. His combat knife, enhanced with monomolecular edges, sliced through the gaps in the creature's armor with surgical precision before the Krex even knew he was there. The aliens' advanced sensors, calibrated for detecting energy weapons and metallic signatures, had completely missed the humans' approach. Rodriguez and his team had spent months learning to move through hostile territory, using nothing but natural materials, patience, and an intimate understanding of their environment. As the ambush unfolded with devastating efficiency, the surviving Krex soldiers tried to establish a defensive perimeter, their training kicking in despite the shock of the surprise attack. But the humans had already melted back into the jungle, leaving behind only the echo of carefully placed shots and the growing realization that the hunters had become the hunted. In the Krex command center orbiting Verdania 7, General Chitinous received the latest casualty reports with growing frustration. Another patrol eliminated. Another outpost overrun. Another day of embarrassing losses against what should have been a primitive and easily defeated enemy. How many this time? He demanded of his aide, Lieutenant Mandible. 12 soldiers lost, sir. No human casualties detected. They struck during the patrol's movement through Sector 7 and were gone before reinforcements could arrive. Chitnis's compound eyes narrowed with rage. That makes 43 of my soldiers eliminated by these jungle primitives in the last week alone. 43. Elite Krex warriors, defeated by beings who should be cowering in fear of our superiority. Sir, perhaps we should reconsider our tactics. The natives seem to have an unusual understanding of guerrilla warfare techniques. They're using the environment against us in ways our simulations never predicted. The environment is just trees and dirt. We have orbital surveillance, energy weapons, advanced armor, and superior numbers. There is no excuse for these continued failures. What General Chitnis didn't know was that the natives causing him so much trouble were not the indigenous population of Verdania 7 at all. They were Captain Rodriguez and his team, who had arrived on the planet 6 months earlier as part of a secret reconnaissance mission authorized by Earth's military command. The real natives of Verdania 7 were actually a peaceful species of plant-like beings called the Verdi, who possessed no military capabilities whatsoever. They had been trying to surrender to the Krex for weeks, but the alien invaders had been too busy hunting ghosts in the jungle to notice their attempts at communication. Rodriguez and his team had originally been sent to gather intelligence on alien military capabilities and tactics, but when they witnessed the Krex invasion and the terror it brought to the innocent Verdi population, they had made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. They had decided to fight, using skills learned in the jungles of Earth, enhanced by 6 months of studying alien technology and tactics. The small human team had turned Verdania 7 into a nightmare for the Krex invasion force. They had captured alien equipment, studied alien weaknesses, and most importantly, they had learned that superior technology meant nothing if you didn't know how to use it effectively in hostile terrain. As Rodriguez received Sarah Chen's encrypted message about the upcoming demonstration, he allowed himself a small smile. The Galactic Council thought they were setting humanity up for a humiliating defeat. Instead, they were about to witness exactly what humans were capable of when they stopped trying to fight fair and started fighting smart. The message included detailed information about additional human forces being sent to Verdania 7. 3 full companies of the Earth's finest jungle warfare specialists, complete with equipment specifically designed for fighting in hostile alien environments. They would be arriving within the week, just in time to turn what the aliens thought would be a demonstration of human weakness into something entirely different. In his hidden base, deep within the jungle canopy, Rodriguez began planning the reception that would greet the new arrivals. The Krex thought they had problems now. They had no idea what was coming. The galaxy was about to learn that when it came to jungle warfare, humans didn't just adapt to hostile environments. They made those environments hostile to everyone else. Number mocked Earth. Met devastation. The Jungle Special Forces in Action. Part 2. The human transport ships materialized at the edge of the Verdania 7 system like deadly phantoms emerging from the void. Unlike the massive, gleaming vessels favored by most galactic civilizations, these ships were smaller, angular, and coated with adaptive camouflage that made them nearly invisible against the star field. General Chitnis barely had time to register their arrival before they had already deployed their cargo and vanished back into hyperspace. Colonel Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the lead transport, watching the jungle world grow larger on the view screen. Behind her, 3 companies of Earth's most elite soldiers made final preparations for deployment. These weren't regular military units. They were specialists drawn from every major jungle warfare program on Earth. Former Green Berets, Navy SEALs, SAS operatives, Spetsnaz veterans, and indigenous warriors from the Amazon, Congo, and Southeast Asian rainforests. Colonel, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim from the communications station, we're receiving a coded transmission from Captain Rodriguez's team. They're requesting immediate extraction to a secure location for briefing. Patch me through, Vasquez ordered, slipping on her tactical headset. Within moments, she was connected to the man who had become a legend among Earth's Special Forces community. Rodriguez here. Welcome to paradise, Colonel. Hope you brought bug spray. Despite the gravity of the situation, Vasquez found herself smiling. Rodriguez's reputation for maintaining humor in impossible situations was well known throughout the military. What's our tactical situation, Captain? The Kreks have been chasing their own tails for 6 months. They're frustrated, demoralized, and making increasingly desperate moves. Perfect conditions for what we have planned, which is complete psychological warfare combined with asymmetric tactical operations. We're not just going to defeat them, Colonel. We're going to make them afraid of every shadow, every sound, and every leaf in this jungle. By the time we're done, the mere mention of human soldiers will make Kreks warriors request transfers to safer assignments. As the human forces deployed via stealth pods scattered throughout the jungle, General Chitinus was receiving disturbing intelligence reports from his command staff. Sir. Lieutenant Mandible's voice carried a tremor that the Kreks officer was trying hard to suppress. Our orbital sensors have detected multiple small craft deploying throughout the jungle canopy. The energy signatures are unusual. Unusual how? They don't match any known technology in our databases. The craft seem to be constructed from materials that absorb rather than reflect our scanning attempts. It's as if they were specifically designed to be invisible to our detection systems. Chitinus felt his compound eyes narrow with suspicion. Show me the deployment pattern. The holographic display that materialized above the command table made the general's blood run cold. The human forces hadn't deployed randomly. They had positioned themselves in a perfect grid that would allow them to monitor and control every major transit route, supply line, and communication relay in the occupied territory. This is not the work of primitive jungle dwellers, Chitinus muttered, his mandibles clicking nervously. This is military planning of the highest order. What the Kreks general didn't know was that the human deployment had been planned not just for military effectiveness, but for maximum psychological impact. Captain Rodriguez had spent months studying Kreks tactical doctrines, communication protocols, and psychological profiles. He knew exactly how to make the most advanced military force in the galaxy start making mistakes. The first phase of the human counteroffensive began at exactly midnight, Verdania 7 local time. Sergeant Maria Santos moved through the underbrush with the fluid grace of a shadow, her enhanced camouflage making her invisible even to her own team members unless they knew exactly where to look. In her hands, she carried a weapon that no Kreks database contained specifications for. A traditional Earth crossbow, modified with alien technology, scavenged from previous engagements. The weapon fired projectiles made from local jungle materials that were completely organic and therefore invisible to Krek sensors. But these weren't ordinary arrows. They had been tipped with a paralytic toxin derived from Verdania 7's native flora, a substance that human biochemists had discovered was particularly effective against Krek's physiology. Santos's target was a Kreks communication relay, positioned on a ridge overlooking the main supply route. 2 guards patrolled the perimeter with mechanical precision, their confidence absolute in their advanced armor and weapon systems. They never saw her coming. The first guard dropped silently, his nervous system paralyzed by the toxin before he could even register the impact. The second guard had time to turn toward his fallen comrade before Santos's second shot took him down as well. But eliminating the guards wasn't the real objective. Santos quickly accessed the communication relay, uploading a virus that her team's computer specialist had designed specifically to target Krek's information systems. The virus wouldn't destroy their communications. Instead, it would introduce subtle delays and distortions that would gradually erode confidence in their command structure. Similar operations were taking place simultaneously throughout the occupied zone. Corporal Jackson Williams, a former Delta Force operative, was using homemade explosives to create false readings on Krek's seismic sensors, making them believe they were detecting massive troop movements that didn't exist. Staff Sergeant Lisa Chen, a cyber warfare specialist, was intercepting and altering Krek's supply requests, ensuring that critical materials would be delivered to the wrong locations at the wrong times. The genius of the human strategy wasn't in the individual operations, it was in their cumulative effect. Each seemingly minor disruption was designed to create doubt and confusion in the Krek's command structure, forcing them to question the reliability of their own systems and the competence of their own soldiers. By dawn, The Krex forces on Verdania 7 were experiencing what their military manuals would later classify as a cascade failure of operational confidence. General Chitinus stood in his command center, staring at reports that made no sense according to everything he knew about military science. "Sir, we've lost contact with 17 patrol units," Lieutenant Mandible reported, his voice growing more strained by the hour. "But our orbital sensors show no evidence of large-scale combat operations. No energy weapon discharges, no explosive detonations, no massive troop movements. Then how are my soldiers disappearing?" We don't know, sir. The patrol units simply stop responding to communications. When we send reinforcements to investigate, they find evidence of brief struggles, but no bodies, no wreckage, nothing that would indicate what happened to the missing troops." What the Krex didn't understand was that the humans weren't killing their soldiers. They were capturing them. Each captured Krex warrior was quickly processed through a psychological operations protocol that Rodriguez had developed based on human prisoner of war techniques enhanced with alien psychology research. The captured soldiers weren't tortured or harmed. Instead, they were subjected to carefully controlled sensory experiences designed to make them doubt the effectiveness of their own military. They were shown seemingly impossible demonstrations of human tactical capabilities, fed carefully crafted misinformation about human technology and numbers, and then released in locations where they would be quickly recovered by their own forces. But they returned to their units changed. They brought back stories of humans who could appear and disappear at will, who seemed to control the jungle itself, who possessed technology that their sensors couldn't detect and weapons that their armor couldn't stop. More importantly, they brought back doubt. Doubt about their mission, their equipment, and their chances of survival. Colonel Vasquez established her command post in a camouflaged position that overlooked the main Krex base. From her vantage point, she could see the alien installation sprawling across a cleared section of jungle, its prefabricated structures and defensive positions clearly visible under the alien sun. "Rodriguez," she spoke into her comm unit, "what's your assessment of their defensive posture?" "Deteriorating rapidly," came the immediate reply. "They've increased patrol frequency by 300%, but patrol effectiveness has dropped to near zero. They're jumping at shadows and wasting ammunition on false targets. More importantly, they're starting to bunch up in defensive formations instead of maintaining aggressive postures." "Time for Phase 2? Affirmative. The psychological foundation is set. Now we show them what human military doctrine looks like when we stop playing nice." The second phase of the human offensive began with a coordinated strike against the Krex supply convoy traveling along the main jungle road. But this wasn't another ghost attack designed to sow confusion. This was a direct confrontation intended to demonstrate the futility of superior technology in the hands of inferior tacticians. Captain Rodriguez positioned his forces along a narrow canyon where the road was forced between two high ridges. The Krex convoy consisted of 12 heavily armored vehicles, escorted by 2 full companies of infantry. Their weapons could level mountains, their armor could deflect directed energy weapons, and their numbers should have provided overwhelming superiority against any conceivable threat. Rodriguez attacked them with pointed sticks. The sticks were actually guided projectiles made from local materials, propelled by human-designed chemical accelerators, and targeted using tactical computers built from captured Krex technology. They struck with the precision of advanced missiles but registered on Krex sensors as nothing more threatening than falling debris. The lead vehicle's driver suddenly found his viewport obscured by what appeared to be a tree branch, but the branch exploded on contact, releasing a cloud of organic compounds that interfered with the vehicle's navigation systems. Similar strikes disabled communication arrays, weapon targeting systems, and movement controls throughout the convoy. Within minutes, the most advanced military convoy in the galaxy had been reduced to a collection of expensive but useless metal boxes by an enemy using weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate their paint. But the real demonstration was just beginning. As Krex soldiers abandoned their disabled vehicles and formed defensive positions, Rodriguez's team began a systematic exhibition of every human military tactic developed over thousands of years of warfare. They used cover and concealment in ways that confused alien sensors. They employed flanking maneuvers that took advantage of terrain features the Krex hadn't considered strategically significant. They coordinated their movements with a precision that didn't depend on electronic communications or advanced technology. Most devastatingly, they fought with an adaptability that alien military doctrine couldn't predict or counter. When Krek's forces attempted to establish overlapping fields of fire, the humans simply changed the rules of engagement, using stealth and misdirection instead of direct confrontation. When the aliens tried to use their superior firepower to deny territory, the humans demonstrated that controlling ground meant nothing if you couldn't control the enemy's movement. The battle lasted exactly 18 minutes. When it was over, 2 full companies of elite Krek soldiers had been neutralized by a human force 1/10 their size, using weapons that wouldn't have been considered advanced by Stone Age standards. But perhaps the most demoralizing aspect of their defeat was the realization that the humans could have killed them all, but had chosen instead to simply render them unconscious and confiscate their equipment. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't trying to destroy the Kreks. They were proving that the Kreks weren't worthy opponents. In the orbital command center, General Chitinus stared at the tactical display showing his scattered and demoralized forces with growing panic. His military career, his species' reputation, and his personal honor were all disintegrating before his eyes, destroyed by primitives who shouldn't have been able to challenge a single Krek's warrior. "Get me a direct communication line to the Galactic Council," he ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. "Tell them we need immediate reinforcements. Tell them the situation on Verdania 7 has become complicated." 2. What he didn't tell them was that he was beginning to suspect that the primitive jungle dwellers his forces had been sent to subdue weren't natives of Verdania 7 at all. He was beginning to suspect that they were facing something far more dangerous: human soldiers who had turned an alien world into their own personal training ground. Number mocked Earth. Met devastation. The Jungle Special Forces in Action. Part 3. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 3 days after General Chitinus's desperate request for reinforcements. The massive chamber buzzed with nervous energy as delegates filed in. Their conversations focused on the disturbing reports coming from Verdania 7. Commander Zethkar of the Vorthok Empire took his seat with considerably less confidence than he had displayed during the previous meeting. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the same petitioner's podium, but everything else about the situation had changed dramatically. Where before she had faced open mockery and dismissive laughter, now she was met with wary silence and barely concealed concern. The holographic display above the chamber showed real-time tactical updates from Verdania 7, and the statistics were impossible to ignore. Krek's losses: over 400 soldiers eliminated or captured, equipment destroyed or confiscated, 70% of deployed assets, territory secured, 0%, mission status, complete failure, human losses, 0 confirmed casualties, territory controlled, effective authority over 80% of the operational zone, mission status, overwhelming success. Honored delegates, Sarah began, her voice carrying a confidence that had been notably absent during her previous appearance. "I believe you requested a demonstration of human military capabilities. I trust the results have been illuminating." The chamber remained silent. General Chitinus, who had been transported down from his orbital command post for this emergency session, sat hunched in his designated area, his compound eyes fixed on the floor. The proud Krek's warrior who had proposed this test looked like a broken soldier returning from a defeat so total that it defied comprehension. Commander Zethkar finally found his voice, though it lacked its previous authority. "Ambassador Chen, we must ask for clarification. Our intelligence reports indicate that the forces operating on Verdania 7 are not the primitive natives we expected to encounter." "That's correct, Commander. The native Verdi are a peaceful species with no military capabilities whatsoever. They have been attempting to surrender to General Chitinus's forces for weeks, but apparently, the Kreks have been too busy being hunted through their own jungle to notice." The implication hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The assembled delegates slowly began to realize what had actually happened. The Kreks hadn't been defeated by primitive jungle dwellers. They had been systematically dismantled by human military forces, operating with a level of tactical sophistication that none of them had believed possible. You deliberately deceived us, Zethkar accused, his forearms spreading in a gesture of outrage. This was not a fair test of human capabilities against primitive resistance. Sarah's expression hardened. Commander, your General Chitness requested that humanity send our finest warriors to assist in a military operation. We sent 3 companies of our special forces. At no point did anyone specify that we were limited to fighting with primitive weapons or tactics. The deception, if any occurred, was in your assumption that human military science was inferior to your own. The truth of her statement was undeniable, but it made the situation even more troubling for the alien delegates. If humans could achieve such overwhelming tactical superiority with conventional forces, what did that say about the rest of galactic military doctrine? The aquatic hydros delegate gurgled something that the translators rendered as a question about human technology levels. Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. I'm glad you asked. Captain Rodriguez, would you please join us? The air in the center of the chamber shimmered, and suddenly, a human figure materialized as if condensing from nothingness. The assembled delegates recoiled in shock, many reaching for weapons or defensive systems, but the figure simply stood at attention next to the podium. Captain Rodriguez looked exactly like what he was, a soldier who had spent 6 months turning an alien jungle into his personal kingdom. His uniform was a mixture of human military gear and equipment clearly scavenged from alien sources. His weapons were a blend of Earth technology and captured Krex hardware, modified in ways that no manual had ever contemplated. Most unsettling of all, he carried himself with the relaxed confidence of a predator who had never encountered anything he considered a genuine threat. Delegates of the Galactic Council, Rodriguez said, his voice calm and professional. I'd like to address some misconceptions about human technology that seem to be causing confusion. He gestured, and his suit's camouflage system activated, making him partially translucent. This is a standard human stealth suit, enhanced with technology we captured from Krex forces, and improved using principles our engineers developed during 6 months of field testing. The original Krex stealth technology was designed to fool Krex sensors. Our version is designed to fool everyone. The suit's camouflage deactivated, and Rodriguez continued his demonstration. The weapons we used against General Chitness's forces were not primitive by human standards. They were deliberately simple, constructed from local materials to prove a point about the relationship between technological sophistication and tactical effectiveness. He pulled a device from his belt that looked like nothing more than a piece of carved wood. This is a guided projectile launcher, built entirely from Verdania 7 flora, using principles human engineers have understood for centuries. It can penetrate Krex armor at ranges exceeding their energy weapons, and it's completely invisible to their detection systems because they never programmed their computers to recognize organic materials as potential threats. The silence in the chamber was becoming oppressive. Rodriguez seemed completely unaffected by the attention of beings who could have destroyed his entire species with a thought. The tactics we employed aren't advanced human military science, he continued conversationally. They're basic infantry doctrine that we teach to soldiers in their first year of training. We use them because they work against any enemy, regardless of technological advancement, when that enemy doesn't understand the principles involved. General Chitness finally raised his head, his voice hollow with defeat. What principles? What did we fail to understand? Rodriguez turned to face the broken Krex commander directly. You failed to understand that war isn't about having the best technology, General. It's about adapting to conditions, exploiting weaknesses, and maintaining the initiative regardless of circumstances. You brought superior firepower to a contest of superior thinking. Your soldiers were trained to fight other technology-dependent civilizations. They had no idea how to respond to an enemy that didn't follow their tactical assumptions. The captain's expression became almost sympathetic. Your forces aren't weak, General. They're simply unprepared for asymmetric warfare against an opponent who refuses to fight according to your rules. Every military in galactic history has apparently made the same mistake. Assuming that technological superiority translates to tactical invincibility. Commander Zethkar leaned forward in his throne, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. Are you suggesting that human forces could defeat any military in the galaxy using these primitive tactics? I'm not suggesting anything, Commander. I'm stating facts based on observed performance. Your general sent 2 full companies of elite soldiers against 12 humans using improvised weapons. The result was total defeat for the technologically superior force. The implications of that outcome should be obvious. The chamber erupted in angry voices as delegates began arguing among themselves about the implications of what they were witnessing. Some called for immediate military action against Earth before human tactics could spread to other species. Others demanded detailed intelligence about human military capabilities. A few were already calculating the political advantages of allying with humanity before their competitors realized what had happened. Sarah Chen waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. Honored delegates, I believe this demonstration has answered your original question about what humanity can offer to galactic civilization. We offer a perspective that your technological advancement seems to have made you forget. The understanding that intelligence, adaptability, and tactical innovation will always triumph over mere technological superiority. She paused, letting her words sink in before delivering the final blow to galactic arrogance. Captain Rodriguez's team didn't defeat the Krex forces in spite of their primitive weapons. They defeated them because they understood something that your entire galactic civilization has apparently forgotten. The most advanced weapon in the universe is a well-trained soldier who refuses to accept limitations. The holographic display updated with new information that made every delegate in the chamber freeze in shock. Intelligence reports were flooding in from across the galaxy as various species military commands realized the implications of what had happened on Verdania 7. Human tactical doctrines were being analyzed by every major military force in known space. Training programs were being revised. Weapons development priorities were being completely restructured. Most disturbing of all, scattered reports were beginning to emerge of other primitive species in the galaxy, beginning to adopt human-style tactical approaches in their own conflicts. The implications were staggering. If asymmetric warfare principles spread throughout the galaxy, every established military hierarchy could be overthrown by forces they had previously considered negligible. What do you want? Zethkar asked finally, his voice containing none of its previous arrogance. What are humanity's terms for sharing this knowledge with galactic civilization? Sarah smiled. And this time, the expression contained genuine warmth. The same thing we wanted when we first applied for membership. Commander, we want to be partners. We want to share our knowledge, learn from yours, and work together to build something better than any of us could achieve alone. And if we refuse? Captain Rodriguez answered before Sarah could speak. Then you refuse, Commander. We're not interested in conquering anyone or forcing our way into your organization, but the galaxy is a big place, and news travels fast. How long do you think it will be before every oppressed species, every rebellious colony, and every underdog military force realizes that technological superiority isn't the advantage they thought it was? The implications of his words sent a chill through the chamber. If human tactical principles spread without human guidance or control, the result could be chaos on a galactic scale. Every established power structure could collapse as traditionally weak forces realized they didn't have to accept their designated roles in the cosmic hierarchy. Partnership, Sarah repeated, her voice carrying the weight of an ultimatum disguised as an offer. Mutual respect, shared knowledge, and the understanding that every species has something valuable to contribute. That's what humanity is offering. The vote was unanimous. 3 months later, the first human galactic military academy opened on Verdania 7, with Captain Rodriguez as its first commandant. The facility was built around the same jungle where he had spent 6 months proving that the most dangerous weapon in the universe wasn't a death ray or a planet killer. It was a human being who refused to accept the impossible. The Academy's motto, carved in every galactic language above the entrance, read, "Technology serves wisdom, not the reverse." General Chitinus, in a remarkable demonstration of personal honor, requested and received assignment as one of the Academy's first students. His own species had court-martialed him for his failure on Verdania 7, but the humans had offered him something more valuable than military rank. The chance to understand why he had lost, and how to ensure it never happened again. On Earth, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the United Nations General Assembly, addressing the representatives of her own species for the first time since returning from the Galactic Council. "Fellow humans," she began, "we have been invited to join a galactic civilization that spans thousands of species and millions of worlds. But perhaps more importantly, we have been asked to teach them something they had forgotten in their rush toward technological advancement, that the greatest innovations in history have always come not from better tools, but from better thinking." She gestured toward a holographic display showing the bustling activity around the new academy on Verdania 7, where human instructors worked alongside alien students to develop new tactical doctrines that combined the best of both technological advancement and adaptive thinking. "We go into this new era not as conquerors or subjects, but as partners in the truest sense of the word. We bring our knowledge, our perspective, and our refusal to accept limitations. In return, we gain access to technologies and opportunities that will transform our civilization. But most importantly," she concluded, "we have proven something that the galaxy desperately needed to remember: that intelligence, courage, and determination will always find a way to overcome any obstacle, no matter how impossible it seems." The applause that followed her speech was heard not just in the United Nations building, but through quantum communication relays across the galaxy, where 1,000 species were beginning to understand that the age of purely technological warfare was ending. A new era was beginning. One where the most dangerous weapon in any army would be a soldier trained to think, as well as fight. And at the center of it all, in a jungle that had become a symbol of human ingenuity, Captain Rodriguez continued training the next generation of galactic warriors in the ancient art of making the impossible look routine. The galaxy would never be the same again.